How important was it for you, Meghan, to wear a damn veil at your wedding, given that you're hardly a traditionalist, love, when it comes to nuptials, given your wedding with Trevor Engelson was full of everyone smoking pot? I knew in 2018 that Queen Elizabeth II hated Meghan Markle. Now, that's a strong word to use, I appreciate, but you will remember I was the first in the world to report the fact that the now late Queen was horrified by the way the fake Duchess was acting in the run-up to her wedding. At that point, the Royal Rota were completely on side with Harry and Meghan. At that point, there was no sense that they were going to report how the Queen really felt in that moment at Windsor Castle. But I felt the world had a right to know. So that's why I hope you trust me when I say that these new reports coming out about exactly how the Queen felt, even though it's 8 years after the fact, mean something. They are part of history. Because what it shows you is that the late Queen Elizabeth II had worked out the truth about Ms. Markle before any of the mainstream media were onto this. And trust me, it was nothing to do with racism. Brittany from the Royal News Network joins me now. Brittany, we're going to do a deep dive today into exactly how the Queen felt about Meghan Markle. And when I say she hated her, I know some people will think that is a strong word, Brittany, but I just want to explain what I mean. Because she certainly didn't hate Meghan Markle when she first met her. In fact, she welcomed her with open arms. She tried to give Meghan access to her main advisors, some of the closest people in her world. But by the time of the wedding, by the time that she had figured out that this was a woman who was marrying into the royal family, not for love, Brittany, not for love, but to further her own career. And when she saw, and this I think is the key point for me, when she saw the way that this woman had changed her grandson forever, had destroyed the relationship between brothers, had destroyed the relationship between sister-in-law and brother, that's when she had had enough. So again, I know it's a strong word, Brittany, but what is your take on this emergence of, I would say, really key evidence, not just from Lady Elizabeth and the late Queen's cousin, but also other people that we'll get into in just a moment through this new piece and reporting from Richard Kay in the Daily Mail. But to me, it is starting to now back up the sort of contemporaneous reporting that I was doing at the time in 2018. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
Well, it's, I think, so great to have these stories coming out yet again, because it's important to go over sort of how Meghan responded to the royal family and how many divisions and conflicts that she was causing, because Meghan has really, really tried to paint herself as the victim in the scenario, when in fact she has been the villain in this whole royal family saga. And so I really like that these stories are coming out and reiterating some of the reporting that you had done, and that kind of grew over time and shows that in many ways, despite Meghan Markle's claims to the contrary, there were aspects of the press that were trying to protect her. But unfortunately, her behavior was so abhorrent that it just would not last forever. And Meghan is seeing the results of that all the time. And she's trying still desperately, desperately to rehab her image. And because if you look at everything that happened in her interactions with the Queen and Charles and William and Catherine and everyone, really, Meghan, despite all the money she's throwing at PR, will never resolve anything without, I think, reconciling with the royal family. Unfortunately, she cannot reconcile with Queen Elizabeth, but I think Her Majesty just saw Meghan and just knew that and felt after a while that Meghan was just marrying into the royal family for all the wrong reasons.
And Richard Kay, who is the editor at large of the Daily Mail, a long-time royal reporter, he was, of course, a confidant of Princess Diana. And I guess I would describe him as an establishment royal reporter. So he will tend to write about things when the royal family are ready for him to do so. And this new piece, Brittany, I think it's quite fascinating. We can go through it and analyze as we go. But it's headlined, "When Queen heard it was Harry on the phone, there was stony silence. Peerless royal expert Richard Kay sensationally tells for the first time exactly how Prince and Meghan blew relationship with his grandmother." And what's so interesting, Brittany, is that headline has actually come via the telephonist at Buckingham Palace. And I love this. I love this because so often, Brittany, it is those, what do people call them? You know, they're the backroom staff. Do you know what I mean? I hate the term servants. In the day, Brittany, they would have been called the servants. But, you know, they are the backroom staff who very much know how the royal family tick. They are uber loyal. But it was this quite small detail, Brittany, that the telephonist picked up, which just showed how much the late Queen didn't want to speak to Meghan. I found it fascinating. But let's go through it, Brittany, and just interrupt when you've got things to add. So Richard Kay writes, "Just the other day, a former Buckingham Palace switchboard operator was reminiscing about working for the late Queen Elizabeth. One afternoon, a call had come through from Prince Harry in the US, and he wanted to speak to his grandmother. The procedure was to ring the Queen's private number and let her know who was on the line. She would always thank you, and then you would connect the call and leave them to the conversation," the operator recalled. "But on this occasion, she did not. When I announced to the Queen that Harry was her caller, there was just a stony silence. In fact, it was so uncomfortable that I filled the silence myself by saying, 'Thank you, Your Majesty,' and then connected them." And Brittany, given we now know that the tone and the tenor of these phone conversations between Harry and the late Queen, and I have to give credit, by the way, to Angela Levin, who has always consistently reported here on Outspoken that Harry used to yell at the late Queen in these conversations, it makes so much sense.
Yes, and I'm sure she knew as well that when he was calling, it was just never anything good. He wanted something. He wanted to complain about something. Like, it was not a call that she ever looked forward to. And knowing my grandparents, they love it when I call. And so if you're getting to the point where your grandmother doesn't really want to take your call and feels forced to, that's just such a bad sign. But I can completely and utterly imagine Her Majesty on the other end of that phone going, "Golly, what mess is he wanting me to clean up now? What do him and his wife want? Like, tried to give them everything, and they're never satisfied." And not to mention the fact that they still now use their kids as a weapon against Charles, not letting him see them and not coming to the UK with them. And Harry demanding security that they can't actually give him. Like, that's not their power to do. And I just feel for the Queen so much there, that she used to have this wonderful relationship with Harry. And as we've heard as well from Lady Elizabeth, that he blew it up. He blew it up for his wife because he was a weak man and was more than willing to be led around her by her. And it's resulted in a catastrophic disaster that has consumed his life.
Well, indeed. And Richard Kay goes on, "This incident happened during the COVID pandemic, a time of considerable anxiety for the Queen. Her increasingly frail husband, Prince Philip, was nearing the end of his life, and the fallout from Harry and Meghan's decision to abandon Britain for a life of pampered exile had triggered a series of royal crises. Even so, the telephonist has never forgotten the moment, telling me it was memorable because the Queen would never not acknowledge you. To this long-standing and loyal servant," there's that word, Brittany, I just still don't like it, I'm sorry. I don't like it, we're in 2025, but there you go. "The absence of the usual courtesy was a direct result of the tensions and discord sown by the Prince and his wife." Then he moves on to talk about Lady Elizabeth Anson and these incredible revelations that have come directly from not just the Queen's late cousin, but also her BFF. And one of Lady Elizabeth's personal assistants has said to Richard she was rightly proud of her closeness to the Queen, but she was also very discreet and highly respectful. And Richard Kay goes on to report, nevertheless, it is that closeness and the Queen's reported views about the troublesome Sussexes which is crucial. After all, it is the question we all want to know the answer to. What did Elizabeth, and indeed Philip, really think of Harry's bride? Did she even like her? And how did her affection for a grandson to whom she was once devoted end up souring to the point where Lady Elizabeth confidently described the relationship with his grandmother as blown? Accounts of the drama surrounding the couple's Windsor Castle wedding, their subsequent departure, and the fallout between Harry and his brother Prince William are not new. And Harry, of course, has written a version of these events in his memoir, Spare, which conveniently skates over suggestions that his relationship with his grandmother and her staff was anything less than serene. What has been missing have been the views of those they left behind amid the wreckage of Megxit. Thanks to convention and a reluctance to play the couple at their own game, the Windsors have largely concealed their hurt behind a grim-faced royal rectitude. Initially, both Lady Elizabeth and the Queen were fans of the articulate and confident 36-year-old American actress who had won the prince's heart. According to Biddell Smith, Lisa thought Meghan poised, very natural, intelligent, and thoughtful, but added that she was clearly brighter than Harry and has to be careful not to overshadow him. Does this chime with the Queen's view? Richard Kay reports, I believe it does. When Harry first took Meghan to tea with his grandmother at the palace, a footman told me at the time that the Queen beamed at her staff, telling them how much she liked her. But when Lady Elizabeth made suggestions about the wedding, the actress, while full of charm, was unforthcoming. Harry subsequently wrote to this veteran of royal soirees explaining that they were going another way, adding, I am close to my grandmother and she is content with this. So, Brittany, that is critical, I think, to the historical point here, because of course what Meghan wants the world to believe, and let's just call it as it is, what she wants the world to believe is that this disdain towards her was coming from racism. And I'm very concerned, Brittany, that that's something that in the decades to come, if woke comes back, is something that could take hold. And the thing is, the late Queen Elizabeth II was the least racist woman on earth. I mean, look at her work in the Commonwealth. Look at the people who she loved most, Brittany, outside of her own immediate family. It was a lot of the leaders in Africa, and it was a lot of the leaders throughout the Caribbean. Okay, so to suggest that this woman is racist is absolutely absurd. And so I think this is what's important about this history here, and something that has been a little bit missed in the reporting of this. It's not just like the late Queen met Meghan and didn't like her. She loved her. She was beaming. She thought this woman was great. It was Meghan's behavior that changed the way the late Queen felt about her.
Yes, and when it comes to how Meghan really was absolutely atrocious in the lead up to her wedding, that is what soured so many on her. But I think the Queen, like you could say many people, initially they meet Meghan, they think she's great, but after a while, sort of the charm that Meghan puts on, I think starts to reveal itself as sort of false to people. They start reading into it going, I just don't know if she's being truthful here or not. And as Meghan became so demanding in the lead up to the wedding, I mean, to be quite frank, like Harry's book said, she was marrying the spare, and yet Meghan wanted to be treated like the queen. She didn't want to put any of her ideas past the monarch. She wanted to keep her dress secret, allegedly, and so many different things that Meghan just showed throughout the whole process of the lead up to the wedding, that she had zero respect for not only Harry, but his grandmother, his father, the institution that she was supposed to represent and marry into. And I think Her Majesty felt that. I think they all did. And I actually think the whole royal family was actually very thrilled that Meghan had this mixed race heritage, because it helped with the Commonwealth. And that's why she made them the president and the vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, is that I think she really loved that and loved what that meant for the future. But it was Meghan's character that's always the issue. You can always go back to the Martin Luther King quote. You want to be judged by the content of your character, not the content of your skin. And what's basically happened to Meghan is that we judge her based on her character, and she has shown that over the years, and it's been reiterated again and again through reports and reports of alleged bullying and bad behavior behind the scenes, that Meghan is not the perfect saintly image that she tries to appear to be, but that she is actually, in my personal opinion, not so great a person. And that's what the royal family came to believe rather quickly. They were probably hoping that her diva behavior was just for the wedding and that it would, once they were married, it would dissipate, but it just got worse. And they wanted to they gave Harry what he wanted despite their reservations. And so that Harry and Meghan complain at all about the royal family's treatment of them is just an absolute joke.
But first, I want to talk to you about something really important because it affects every single one of us. Scammers, spammers, data thieves. These people, these criminals are everywhere and they're feeding off your personal information. You've seen the signs, endless junk emails, dodgy text messages, phone calls pretending to be your bank, your friend, even your own mother. And the thing is, right, this isn't just irritating, like it's not just really annoying when you get these calls, although believe me, it is. It's dangerous. So how did they get your private data in the first place? Well, there's a hidden industry of data brokers quietly collecting everything about you. Your phone number, address, job, even your health and financial records, and they are flogging it to the highest bidder. And it gets worse. If you Google your own name, chances are you'll find your personal details plastered across all sorts of dodgy websites without your permission. But here's the good news. Incogni, a service that I use and trust, has just launched a powerful new feature that takes your online privacy to the next level. It's called Custom Removals, and it's part of their unlimited plan. It's as close to having a digital bodyguard, that's how I put it, as you can get. And what it means is that you can point Incogni directly to any site that you find exposing your personal information, not just the usual data brokers. Their team of privacy experts will then go after these sites on your behalf to get your data removed. It's unlimited, it's personal, and it works. So please don't wait for the worst to happen. Go to Incogni, that's incogni.com/outspoken right now, and you will get 60% off the annual plan. That's incogni.com/outspoken for 60% off. You'll be shocked at how much of your life is out there and how quickly Incogni can take it back for you. I'm using the unlimited plan myself. I'd strongly urge you to do the same. Incogni.com/outspoken. Protect yourself, your family, and your future. But now, back to the show. And Richard Kay goes on, reporting that Lady Elizabeth Ansell had said, when I spoke with the Queen, she said she is not at all content. Plainly upset, the socialite added what turned out to be a prophetic observation. Meghan could turn into nothing but trouble. She sees things in a different way. By now, the Queen was also dismayed at developments. She was upset that Harry had asked the Archbishop of Canterbury to officiate the wedding without first obtaining the permission of the Dean of Windsor, the cleric in charge of the church where the ceremony was to be held. As a high society event planner herself, Lady Elizabeth understood only too well what an embarrassing situation this put the Queen in. Harry seems to think the Queen can do what she wants, but she can't, she told Beadle Smith. On the religious side, it is the Dean of Windsor's jurisdiction. As a result, Lady Elizabeth told the writer, Harry has blown his relationship with his grandmother. This failure to follow protocols had made the Queen really upset. She said she was shocked when the Queen told her how much this had saddened her. In her blog, her Substack, her amazing Substack, Beadle Smith quotes Lady Elizabeth saying that Harry was rude to the Queen for 10 minutes. This originated in a polite inquiry from the Queen about the wedding dress, and Meghan wouldn't tell her. Her distress was not just at the lack of candour and bad manners of the couple, but the lack of respect shown as a monarch. Towards the end of April, with the ceremony only 8 weeks away, Harry and the Queen were said by her confidant to have patched things up. She told the prince that she felt left out of the wedding plans, and her grandson subsequently wrote her a letter about what was happening. Asked if Meghan was being bossy, Lady Elizabeth told Beadle Smith, so I gather very much so. The implication is that this must have been relayed to her by the Queen. 2 weeks before the wedding, the hurt had clearly returned to Her Majesty, and with it the most devastating assessment. The jury is out on whether she likes Meghan. The Queen's cousin is quoted as saying, "My Jemima is very worried. Harry is besotted and weak about women. We hope, but don't quite think she's in love. We think she engineered it. It's worrying that so many people are questioning whether Meghan is right for Harry. The problem, bless his heart, is that Harry is neither bright nor strong, and she is both." Now, Richard Kay goes on to say, Brittany, what makes these disclosures so compelling is that the Queen was always cautious about what she said about the couple because they were so sensitive to any criticism. However, it was to Lady Elizabeth that the Queen made her only publicly revealed remark about the wedding, which was that the bride's Givenchy gown was too white. In the monarch's view, it was not appropriate for a divorcee getting remarried in a church to look quite so flamboyantly virginal. And Brittany, I know that is true because another piece of my very early reporting in regards to this, which remember only became public after the wedding, I only went public with this in November 2016, but it was utterly categorically true, was that the late Queen was horrified that Meghan was wearing a veil to the wedding because she was a divorcee. And you'll remember when Camilla remarried Charles in that 2005 ceremony, out of respect for the Queen, Camilla was not in white, Brittany, and she did not wear a veil. But Meghan didn't give a damn what the Queen thought about these important traditions.
No, and it's quite startling when you think that Harry and Meghan didn't want to tell the Queen anything about the wedding dress, anything they tried to keep, and they really have kept their honeymoon a secret. Like they refused to tell family members where they went. And the whole thing is that Harry's family is paying for the wedding. They're paying for the dress, and she refuses to give them any information about it because she knew they wouldn't approve. And I don't see what Meghan's whole reservation is about. Let's say the thing is, when you marry into an institution like the monarchy, they're not immune to new ideas, but you have to be within the institution, learn how it functions, and then you can propose new ways of doing things. What Meghan did from the jump is just go, I know better. We're going to do things my way because I'm better than you. And Meghan, I think she thinks she's quite bright. And I think Harry is pretty dim and she's much brighter than he is. And he just was led around by her. And he was looking, I guess, for not only a wife, but I think a mother figure in some twisted way. And so he definitely got that with Meghan. But the catastrophic fallout, you just gotta can't help but wonder, was it worth it at the end of the day for Harry to go through with this? Because he has wrecked his life in so many ways. He's wrecked his family relationships, lost time with his grandmother and grandfather who have now both passed. He might miss out on relationships and building a relationship again with his father, his brother, and all for Meghan. And really, was it worth it? I don't know, because if Harry had married somebody different, I think we'd be looking at an entirely different scenario here. And I think that's what every royal family member's concern was. None of them liked her by, I think, the wedding. All of them were like hearing the bad stories going on and they were concerned. And then they're in there in their service. And Sarah's giving the funny eyes during the long sermon and they're just kind of giggling to themselves about
Yeah.
it.
But the public
And they were
didn't
just,
know. That's the thing.
yeah,
This wasn't a media creation. At this point, the public didn't know. And Brittany, just to pick
exactly.
up on one of your points, it's like Meghan should have been delighted because if the late Queen had her way, Harry would never have been marrying a divorcee. She had already significantly modernized. You know, she didn't let her own sister marry the love of her life because of tradition. And if you just look once again at Camilla and Charles in those very happy wedding pictures, I mean, Camilla looked beautiful. She still wore a lovely headdress, right? And how important was it for you, Meghan, to wear a damn veil at your wedding, given that you're hardly a traditionalist, love, when it comes to nuptials, given your wedding with Trevor Engelson was full of everyone smoking pot? I mean, come on.
Well, and the hubris of Meghan, too. She put all the flowers of the Commonwealth on the edge of her veil. And the only royal I'm aware of who has put Commonwealth flowers on an outfit was Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth at her coronation. And so that gives you the level of hubris of Meghan's ego. And not to mention the fact that that veil was horrible. It only looked good maybe once or twice, but it got bunched, it got stuck because it was so ridiculously long. Did it really? I mean, even Princess Eugenie didn't wear a veil. Why did Meghan need to? It was
She
just
didn't
for
need to.
vanity.
It was
It was
total vanity.
excessive.
But you know why? You know why? You know why? Because Catherine did. Because Catherine did at her wedding. And if Catherine did at her wedding, Meghan would at her wedding, because it was all about that huge jealousy as she started to notice, oh, they're getting more than we are. Anyway, Richard Kay goes on and says that the Queen was also uncomfortable with Charles's decision to stand in for Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, and walk her down the aisle after the retired television cameraman declined an invitation to his daughter's wedding due to health issues. The Queen's reservations about her grandson's choice of bride continued after the wedding. Stories began emerging of Meghan's alleged high-handedness towards staff and a growing rift between Harry and William. Meghan and William and Kate are not working well, Lady Elizabeth reported to Beadle Smith. That is what the Queen said, particularly about the two girls. Meghan also had a new nickname, behind palace walls. We call her the American, one figure who worked for Queen Elizabeth told me at the time. This was a not-so-subtle nod, I was told, to the Duchess of Windsor, the twice-married US adventuress who provoked the abdication crisis of the Queen's uncle, King Edward, in February of 2019. Beadle Smith writes that she spoke on the phone to Lady Elizabeth, who unequivocally told her, I don't trust Meghan an inch. To begin with, she was not bad, a straightforward starlet used to public speaking and charity work. The wedge between the brothers is really bad. Richard Kay goes on, soon the dramas of Meg's that were overwhelming the royals at a time when even a phone call from California was greeted with dread by the Queen. But Lady Elizabeth did not live to witness the full fallout. And I think that's one of the things that has been so shocking for me, Brittany, in terms of what we're learning from Beyond the Grave, from Lady Elizabeth Ansem. Remember, the bulk of that was before Megxit. So when people talk, and remember, I've reported a lot of this, when people talk about the fact that there were actually health impacts on the late Queen in regards to how Meghan and Harry had acted, I think that becomes very, very clear when you think she was already so upset, Brittany, before the COVID pandemic, before the lockdown, before she was separated from all of her friends, before Prince Philip's death, before her significant health decline. So it only got so much worse. But of course, we didn't hear that from Lady Elizabeth Ansem because she died in November 2020, which, remember, was another blow to the late Queen Elizabeth because she lost someone who really had become, after the death of her mother and after the death of Princess Margaret, in that horrendous double blow, she became her closest confidant outside of Prince Philip. And arguably Angela Kelly as well. We should never forget Angela Kelly, who was, of course, her staff member, but they became so much more than that.
Yes, I feel so sorry for Elizabeth and Queen Elizabeth in so many ways because those last couple of years of her life were just strife. Harry and Meghan just causing fracture after fracture in the family relationships. The family didn't trust them. They had to change things around. And of course, you have Megxit as well. But Meghan's behavior was just so incredibly atrocious that it just damaged so many relationships within the family, within staff members. You know, you had the high turnover, women leaving, especially assistants, leaving in tears, basically, and being terrified of Meghan. And the Queen was looking at this thinking, I've worked so hard, and Harry is here with his wife, and we wanted to believe in this. And it just, Meghan proved after not even getting married that really she was only after it for the money, the wealth, the power, that she did not care about the institution, did not care about Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip, Charles, Camilla, Catherine, and William. She just wanted to go through and do her own thing and utilize the power that the monarchy has in order to fulfill Meghan's own agenda rather than the agenda of the monarchy. She didn't want to be a team player. She was more than happy, I think, to have the fracture of the relationships between William and Catherine because she didn't want to be compared to Catherine. She didn't want to, I think, go out there and have to actually do engagements with Catherine or anything because she just had this insane level of jealousy. And so I just go back to the fact that everybody told Harry Meghan was a bad idea. He went through it with it anyways, and now he has to live with the consequences. And I think the worst of it is, or one of the worst, is definitely the relationship with his grandmother and how he destroyed that for Meghan. And you just got to wonder at the end of the day, was it worth it, Harry?
Of course it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. Brittany, a fascinating deep dive with you. And I just want to very briefly be a little bit, what's the word? A little bit self-indulgent for one moment, if you don't mind, Brittany, because it's a year now of Outspoken that we've been doing Outspoken every single day. And we hit a big milestone over the weekend. And I could only do it thanks to the support of the incredible Outspoken family. 200 million views, which just totally blew me away, Brittany. I could not believe it. And I just really want to thank everyone for all of the support of Outspoken. When I was at Lady Colin Campbell's ball last weekend, the number of people who are watching the channel, who support the channel, and not just my channel, Brittany's incredible Royal News Network, P. Dinah's incredible channel, according to Taz's incredible channel, of course, Lady C's incredible channel herself, because I think this is so important what we're building, Brittany, which is a network of independent royal reporters, commentators, analysts who are going to give you those stories that you simply will not get now from the mainstream media or from the Royal Rota. And when I set up Outspoken, I promised Brittany I will always deliver the exclusives that the Royal Rota avoids. And I think over the past year, we have done that. I so appreciate everyone's support. And I guess I would just say, let's keep doing it, right? Because the mainstream media can't be trusted anymore, Brittany, on these issues.
They definitely can't. This is why this alternative news outlets that have been established is because people just don't trust the mainstream news media anymore, and they've proven themselves as beholden to, at least in the States especially, one particular political party. And so people are looking for alternatives, and just so exciting. And congratulations on 200 million views. That's incredible.
Thank you.
It just goes to show there's interest out there. It's just a great time, I think, to be a royal correspondent or reporter, because that would have never happened, at least for me, probably in times past. It would never have happened.
Totally. We were so controlled. And look, Brittany, look at the stories we've been talking about today, right? So yes, I did manage to publish them in the mainstream media, but I cannot tell you how difficult it was. I cannot tell you how many hoops I had to jump through. I cannot tell you how much I had to sometimes water down copy, try and convince people. Even the story of Meg's, my editor was very brave, actually, a great editor, but I was still begging him. I'm like, I know this is true, okay? We've got to run this story. It can be very difficult when you have all of those gatekeepers in the mainstream media. We don't have those gatekeepers now, and I think it's so important because it means it's so much easier to deliver the truth. So, of course, please, if you are watching, subscribe to the Royal News Network, subscribe to Outspoken, and if you do want first access every single weekday to the Royal Uncancelled After Show, then I would also really encourage you to sign up to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack has been a really important part of what we've been doing over the past year because it is a free speech platform. It means there is no big tech censorship, and Substack also protects me from lawfare. And remember, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have tried lawfare on me before. So if you can sign up, I would so appreciate it. www.outspoken.live. Brittany, thank you for your amazing work. Thank you for being a part of Outspoken, and I can't wait to speak next week.
Yes, thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.